Everywhere I look these days, I'm seeing pancakes jiggle. They're not the ones I grew up on. These things are pumped up, thick boys. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of pancakes or breakfast in general, but if I'm gonna eat a pancake, I want it to be exceptional. And as a culinary anthropologist, I feel it's my duty to put these things to the test and see if all this jiggling is worth exploring. Now, I have been testing them throughout the week, and I must warn you, these are easy to screw up. I've had some come out like regular pancakes. I've had some get puffy but imperfect, and I've had some get puffy and deflate. So today I'm gonna show you how to avoid the pitfalls of making these famous Japanese soufflé pancakes and decide whether or not they're worthy of your kitchen. And it starts with 2 bowls and 2 eggs. One smaller bowl that we're gonna put the egg yolks in, one bigger bowl that we're gonna use the whites to make a meringue. The defining jiggly characteristic of these pancakes are a result of a meringue. A technique of whipping egg whites and sugar together into a light, fluffy, but sturdy cloud. And if you make this wrong and your meringue is weak, the pancakes will deflate. If you overmix it,
you're gonna have a bad time.
So first we need to crack 2 eggs. And what I'm gonna do is just crack them into the big bowl I'm going to make the meringue. So just crack the eggs into the bowl, and the most important thing is to not break the yolk. If you get any of that yolk remaining in the egg white, it's also gonna screw up the meringue. So I'm just gonna scoop it out with my hands and just pass the yolk back and forth, just like you would with the eggshell, but it's a little safer. Sometimes the eggshell will crack the yolk. Now, the bowl that the egg whites are in, it's cold. It was in the fridge, and I'm gonna put this back in the fridge until we're ready to whip it. But having everything cold is gonna allow you to whip the meringue easier. Now, back to the egg yolks. Now to the eggs, you're gonna need to add a little milk. In my recipe, I have about 1 to 2 tablespoons. Depending on which flour you use and the type of flour, how dry it is, you may need a half tablespoon more. So I'd start with 1.5 tablespoons. And if I need a little bit more, I'm gonna add it. I'm looking for more of a consistency with this stage than anything else. Now to that, I'm gonna take some vanilla extract. Just gonna add a little to the cap, pour that in. Now aside from that, I've got here about 30 grams of cake flour. You can use all-purpose flour, but they're different, so you might need to adjust a few things. And I'm trying to keep track of things in grams, but it's about 2.5 tablespoons, maybe 3. It's better to weigh. And then to that, some baking powder, about 1/4 teaspoon. And to that, I'm just gonna add a pinch of salt. So I'm just gonna take the egg mixture and give it a whisk. Once that's well whisked, we can take our flour mixture and pass that through a strainer. It's just gonna give us a nice, fine texture to the flour. Then we can give it a whisk and see where we're at consistency-wise. That's a little too tight for me, so I'm gonna add that extra half tablespoon of milk. Now you see how it's like almost like a gooey cheese? Doesn't look broken, it looks like smooth. That's what you're looking for, but it's thick. An American pancake would have a much wetter batter. The batter here is much thicker, much tighter. Now we can make our meringue, a vital step in this recipe. Now this is when we're gonna add our sugar, right? So here I've got 30 grams of granulated sugar, about 2.5 tablespoons roughly, 3 tablespoons. I'm gonna add 1/3 of it now. And if you have cream of tartar, this is gonna help out. And that acid is gonna stabilize the meringue and allow it to be stronger than it otherwise would. 1/4 teaspoon in there. Got the rest of my sugar here. I'm gonna start whisking. By hand, if you've got a hand mixer, electric, that's better, but let's see how long it takes to do by hand. Nice and foamy now. We're gonna add a little bit more of the sugar, another 1/3. Take a break, take a breather. Keep whisking. I like to keep it in the corner to begin with. Rapidly move it back and forth. Kind of helps get it going quickly. Then I turn the bowl and I start to whisk using the entire curvature of the bowl. That helps a lot of air get into it. And the bigger the bowl, the better. Starting to get there, almost there, we're gonna add the rest of the sugar. Now you see how we're getting soft peaks here? You might look at this and think we're good. You gotta keep going. We need stiff peaks. It's gonna keep those pancakes inflated when they cook. That's what we're looking for, stiff peaks. Only took 7 minutes. So what you wanna do is take a little bit of the egg white, maybe 1/3 of it. I'm gonna mix that into the egg yolk. What it's gonna do is thin it out, smooth it out, and you don't have to worry about like being gentle at this stage. That really comes now. It's thick, but it's kind of ribbony. Now what I want to do is pour that mixture into this mixture. And now this is where you have to be careful with over mixing. What I'm gonna do is a folding technique where I'm gonna kind of pick it up from the bottom and just fold it over. And you're not stirring, you're cutting and folding. You're just trying to gently incorporate the egg white and the egg yolk, keeping all of that air that you worked so hard to build. It should behave like a cloud. That should be good. What we're gonna do is start to transfer that into the piping bag gently. Then we can take it out, use bench scraper and just gently get it compacted, not too hard. And then I'm just gonna twist it, get a rubber band on. Dough's ready to go. Gonna keep this in the fridge while I again whip something. We're gonna add about a half cup of heavy cream into a cold bowl again. Same thing. That was much easier. Put that in the fridge. Then I just need a strawberry, which I'm going to cut the top off at the edge, and then I'm just gonna cut very thin slices. And you can just fan them out like that. I'm gonna take a little mint, and there we've got our little garnish. Now we've made our dough properly, proper meringue, proper mixing. Now we're entering the next big pitfall, which is cooking it and the cooking temperature. I've had a non-stick preheating on low heat for the last 10 minutes. And I'm looking for a temperature around 300 degrees. I'm gonna keep monitoring with this. And here's the thing, if you cook these too hot, you might deflate them. If you cook them too low, they might undercook.
Gonna have a bad time.
So the timing and temperature here is vital. We're also gonna need a little water to create steam inside the pan and a lid. Now buckle up, because this is the start of a journey of struggle for me. The first attempt starts with us slowly preheating our pan to 300 degrees on low heat. We're gonna add a touch of oil and just spread it around and wipe it. Not too much. Too much oil results in like a spotty browning you see on pancakes, not that even crust. Then start piping the pancake in a swirling pattern to achieve some height. If you made the batter right, it will stand tall. Then add a few drops of water for steam to help them lift. Then place a tight-fitting lid on top and set a timer for 5 minutes. So far, everything is going well, but I keep doing something stupid here, which is opening the lid to see the temperature of the pan. But if you're making a souffle, opening the oven is something that will cause it to deflate, and this is no different. So after 5 minutes, I remove the lid and very gently flip the pancakes. They are extremely soft and fragile. And they look great, right? Add a little bit of water, lid back on, timer set for another 5 minutes. After that 5 minutes, my hopes are high, but then before my eyes, they collapse into what are beautiful looking pancakes to me, but not Japanese souffle pancakes. Eat them up, enjoy them, but I got more batter, so we're going for round 2. This time I'm gonna try and go a bit bigger with the pancake, but the same process as before. I'm just not gonna pipe them as high this time. This is a method I've seen before where you cook a little bit of the pancake on that first side for about 4 minutes and then add another layer of the batter on top for a little bit of extra lift. However, my batter became looser and runnier as they sat. And when I piped it, they ran off the side of the pancake. Not exactly what I was going for. Now I also keep fussing with the lid again. And I'm just kind of getting frustrated here. I go to flip them, feels like a hard landing, but let's go with it. Lid back on for 5 more minutes and the pancakes look great to me. I got some good lift and jiggle and air to it. So right before my eyes, it deflates again. Not horribly though, so let's just give it a plate and see where we're at. A little whipped cream on top, some sliced strawberries, a little mint for color, and of course some syrup and powdered sugar. Like I said, it's harder than it looks. But let's give it a taste. There is something satisfying about this. Now, I don't know if I would classify this as a success. Based on what I've seen, these are supposed to stay fluffy the way you saw them in the pan. One thing that's a given is this takes practice. So I'm gonna have to revisit this. For now, I'm gonna call this a delicious failure. Okay. Now it's a week later. I've spent the week rotting in the sun, contemplating my failure. And I believe I know where we went wrong. And that lands us back at this phase, when the egg yolk mixture is combined and when we've got stiff peaks in our meringue. Now, if you notice back in the original batch that I made, I told you not to overmix these two. And as a result, I went a little too far and undermixed it to the point where egg white was still kind of streaking throughout the mixture. I thought it would be fine, turns out it wasn't. So today we're going to continue to mix these together, again, very gently, but I'm going to make sure I completely combine the two, and there's no egg white running through the end batter. Again, it starts with taking some of that mixture and adding it to the egg yolk mixture, loosening that up. You don't have to worry about the air right now. We're just kind of incorporating it, creating a light, foamy egg yolk. Now I'm gonna do things a little bit differently. I'm just gonna work in a little bit more of that egg white, but I'm just gonna kind of fold it gently. It's kind of like a J motion you're kind of creating. You're gonna cut down and fold. Once that's worked in, I'm gonna take that mixture and I'm gonna add that into the egg white or the meringue. Now, this is when we need to be careful, but thorough. That's sort of the thing I was beginning to learn. Fold that over. You see how there's like white streaking throughout? We're trying to achieve this gentle, homogeneous mixture that's one color, not this kind of dual yellow and white. That looks a little bit better. You want to be gentle, but sometimes I go a little overboard. You're like a little too gentle and you don't even mix the thing properly. Instead of piping it, we're gonna go a simpler route, probably more consistent by just using a good old ladle. Again, we're preheating the nonstick slowly on low heat, hoping it arrives around 300. Now, one mistake I keep making, but I don't know it yet, is that I make the batter and then wait for the pan to heat up. As that happens, the batter begins to slowly deflate. So once the pan's preheated and it's greased up, I go in and pipe the batter, and as you can see, there's not as much lift as the previous pancakes. It begins to spread out a bit more. Again, let's go with it. After 5 minutes, we give it a flip, and the issue here now is that the pancake that is extremely fragile is now big and unwieldy and hard to flip. So after some gentle finagling, give it a flip, and it looks pretty good to me, but there is a little bit of a tear. I'm not gonna complain about that. The only problem is I can tell these aren't quite as fluffy and tall as I want, but we'll let it keep cooking. After another 5 minutes, get it out of the pan and plate it, which again looks like an amazing pancake, but it's just not a Japanese souffle pancake. It lacks that fluffy height. And my idea was to do singles of these, thinking you can kind of hold that batter longer. Again, doesn't work. That batter is on a timer and is to be used as soon as possible. And as you can see, this pancake spread out, making it even bigger and almost impossible to flip. And now is the time I start to lose my cool. These pancakes felt like they were gonna be the ones. But as is commonplace in my life, I was wrong. Now, after threatening to my co-producer to quit my entire career, he convinced me to try one more time. So the next day my approach is to preheat the pan while I make the batter, so it's ready to go right away. Then I immediately get that batter into the piping bag and immediately get it into the preheated, greased 300-degree pan. And as you can see, I'm piping smaller ones, and that batter is staying tall and high. That's a good sign right there. Add some water to steam, cover it, and I've got it on the side burner, which has an extra low setting to control the heat better, and then let that cook for 5 minutes. I was being timid, so I did go on the lower side of the heat, and so after 5 minutes, we give them a check. I flip that first one, and it's a little pale. Need that heat closer to 300 degrees. I'm gonna let the other one go for a minute more, give that a flip, and that's looking much better. Lid goes back on, 5 more minutes, and holy shit, I think I did it. Get those out, flip the pale one so it looks better, and start stacking. Now I've got more batter to cook 2 more batches, and here's an example of how waiting for that batch screws up that batter. And this is the same batter I used for the previous pancakes, but as you can see now, this batter is spreading out. It got thinner and runnier, albeit still fluffy, but it's not the same as the first batch. So my suggestion would be to bust out as many pans as you can to cook all of the pancakes in your batter at once so you don't deal with any deflation issues. It's a tall order for something already difficult to execute, but if you're into pancakes like this, it might be worth it. This was a truly humbling experience. It's been a long few weeks. I have not had this much trouble with a recipe probably since pavlova. So let's see if all this fuss is worth it. Now what's tricky here is, as you can see, that second batch was much flatter. The key really here is to make a batch of the batter and to cook it immediately. The bottom line is there's no reason for these to be this difficult. These are probably the most difficult pancakes in the world to make. If there's one more difficult, I don't want to know about it. I just ate 3 pancakes and I feel like I could go on a run. So I will say they are light, they're delicious. If you're feeling adventurous, give this a shot. And thank you to my producer Dave for forcing me to do this one more time. Winners are failures who just tried one more time. And I'm a souffle pancake winner now. Link's gonna be down in the description. That's all that I have today. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourself and go feed yourself. Fuck me.